Here is the story of two very different lands. 8,000 miles apart, different stories, different peoples, sports, cultures and traditions. South Africa and the United States. And yet, the basis for Wolf by the Ear is my considered belief that the people of the United States are uniquely positioned to grasp the complexities rolled up into the South African story. For several of our core dynamics are shared, some to an almost uncanny extent. The premise for this story was hatched on New Year's Eve of 2004, when I landed in Philadelphia for a 2-year assignment, having just qualified as a chartered accountant. I was by then also studying history through the University of South Africa, and so, books in hand, I arrived at my apartment on the corner of 16th and Chestnut. Philadelphia, of course, makes for a wonderful city through which to explore the past, and it is fascinating to consider the extraordinary sequence of events leading up to the founding of the United States from within the hallowed red bricks of Independence Hall. But there was something else that was drawing my attention, a subtle but surprising familiarity to my own South Africa, something I had not experienced in Europe. Indeed, just as key moments of the South African story can be dissected in surprising detail from just a short stroll through the streets of Cape Town, the different languages and accents, the skin colors, the food, the architecture, and the inequality, so too I found that much of the American story was laid out before me in the streets of Philly. For one hasn't to look far down South Street to see the fallout of an Irish potato famine. European religious intolerance smiles at you across the counter of an Amish bakery at Reading Terminal Market. One can sense slave ships crossing the briny seas, and in the bustle around Rittenhouse Square one can feel the working hands of Franklin, Carnegie and Ford. For our histories are both alive. They are young and passionate, diverse peoples from distant worlds reunited following Europe's expansion into the Atlantic, and then played out over vast tracts of land, which offered a sense of freedom long forgotten within the throttling class structures of European society. And then came opportunity, extraordinary pockets of it, cotton, diamonds, gold and oil. And it was this potent combination of freedom and opportunity which would serve to unleash on both of our peoples some of the rawest traits of the human spirit. Stories of violence and compromise, of prejudice and discrimination. As Anthony Thomas observes, the difference between good and evil is opportunity. And so, notwithstanding all our apparent differences, the stories which forged our national identities are far too human to be unique. Indeed, in this story you'll discover a port at the southern tip of Africa named Kaapstad by the Dutch and then Cape Town by the British, just as Manhattan was renamed Nuwe Amsterdam and then New York by the same peoples. In our discovery of diamonds and gold, you will pinch the seeds of tobacco and cotton. In our scramble for scarce labor, you will peer into a mirror reflecting your own stories of slavery and segregation. Calling out from South Africa's wars for freedom from an oppressive colonial power, you will hear the battle cries at Lexington and Concord. And in the mighty struggle of a people seeking racial justice, you will hear the whisper of Jefferson's self-evident observation that all men are created equal. In Shaka and Paul Kruger, in Rhodes and Mandela, you will find elements of Lincoln and Sitting Bull, of Roosevelt, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. These are traumatic stories, and they haunt us, not only because they are violent and unjust, for ultimately all nations were forged by the crime of a sword, but also, unlike Europe, where the stark detail has been lost to antiquity, our young stories have instead been forever inked into the unflattering light of recorded history, a glaring and detailed testimony of injustice which hangs heavily over both of our nations. It inspires both passion and sharp divisions in our societies, but it also unites us in a powerful shared sense of idealism, the belief that we can be something special, a city on a hill, a beacon to the world. This story aims to take American audiences beyond a lecture on South African history. It offers instead an emotional attachment to the people of South Africa, an opportunity to forge a bond with a land so complex, very few people truly connect. I believe you can. And in the process, you may just discover some perspective on your own country, just as the remarkable story of the United States helped me to untangle the South African journey. This is Wolf by the Ear.